The book I'm going to be painting out of is a vintage book called Watercolors for Beginners. And you would be surprised the kind of high level, I mean, this is not one of them, but the kind of high level paintings they have in this book. They're like figures, all kinds of complicated subjects. And I kind of like that. I kind of appreciate that they don't dumb this book down for you. I feel like that was the 90s. Nowadays, you would never be able to put a beginner book out that was quite so advanced. But nonetheless, we're here to talk about the Strathmore large format journal that I have this time. It's the size approximately of the book that I have, but also of maybe a magazine. So it is indeed quite large. Now, if you want a really granular review of the Strathmore 400 series journal, I suggest you check out another video that I made that's actually doing quite well. This is a newer channel, but people love review videos that are really in depth and show you everything. This is not that video because I've already made one talking about the binding, talking about the cover, how mine got smudged quite a bit, talking about the quality of the paper and whether I think it's worth it or not, and really just all the ins and outs like a proper review. This is more of a sit down and let's look at how much water this journal can hold and whether it's worth it. And you're going to see me paint basically in real time. I'm doing this vases, I guess. One of them's an empty vase. We're going to use lots of water in this book, but for now, I'm just sketching this out using any pencil. This is not a particularly expensive artist grade pencil. This is just a pencil that I have. You'll notice that I've taped off these pages, the one beside it as well. And I don't normally tape off my pages, but I just felt like doing it this time just to get this really professional looking border effect. I think I am reluctant to tape very often, and then I do tape the borders, and I'm like, I really like this. Why don't I do this more often? Maybe you can relate to that. So I will say though about taping, one tip I've picked up, if you want to use this green tape, I picked this up from my watercolor instructor, was to run it on, like put the tape down on your clothing and then pull it up and then attach it to your page, then lay it down on your page. And what that does is pick up just enough lint from your clothing that it's a little less sticky and a little less likely to pull up the fibers from the actual paper itself. But it's not foolproof. We have done that and then it's like ripped off paper anyway. So it helps a little bit. And then the other downside of doing that is sometimes you've picked up too much lint, I guess, depending on what you're wearing. And then it doesn't stick well and then water seeps underneath. So I don't know. My fix for that is just pressing down quite firmly on all the edges of the tape that are going to be touching the water and trying to get a good bond going. But with all that said, I'm happy to report, and you'll see at the very end of this video that it doesn't lift at all. Like both sides, I've taped them both down, and something about this paper is slightly non-stick. I suspect maybe it's because it's a cellulose paper. It's not a cotton paper. I think that's the 500 series you need to get into if you want Strathmore's cotton paper. And it's a slightly bit non-stick. So, on one hand, that causes a little bit of issues for water. Not too much. You'll see I'm painting with quite a bit of water here. But I guess what I'm trying to say is go ahead and use the tape if you want to use the tape. It probably won't rip. But the other side of that is that, this doesn't suck up water the best and it's not 100% cotton, so why would it, right? I am using my Winsor& Newton size 10 round brush. This is the largest brush I own. If I had one, like a more of a mop style brush, I would use it. I don't own one yet. I'm thinking of buying one, so if you have a good recommendation for a somewhat affordable mop brush, please do let me know, because I think that's where we're going next in terms of purchasing a brush. And also, what size? What size mop brush is good? I don't want it to be too big, and I don't want it to be too small either, so it needs to be bigger than the round size 10. But then when you're in the quills and the mops, they're sized differently, so it gets kind of confusing unless I guess you go in person, which is probably the ideal thing to do. So my long-term assessment of the Strathmore is basically this. It's really excellent for when you need a lot of water. It's expensive and overkill if you're doing something that's primarily line and you're not using that much wash. The pages are so thick and it just feels like you could be using a much lighter weight paper if you're just primarily drawing and you're only using a little bit of watercolor on it. Then I think that maybe you're overpaying, but then there are aesthetic considerations as well. So I would never want to tell you don't buy it if you're doing that. Maybe you just really love the look of these books. They have a beautiful hard binding on the outside, and when you put them on your bookshelf, they look like books, archival quality, heirloom type books. The cover of this one, by contrast to the other one that I had that I was taking everywhere with me, because in the review video that I did, that one is about half the size. That book is about half the size, maybe even smaller, of this one. And I was taking it everywhere with me over the summer. It was riding public transportation with me. It was at the park with me. It was getting banged around inside of my handbag, but I was pretty careful with it. And nonetheless, it just had all these white smudges and it just got dusty looking very, very quickly. By contrast, this one is in impeccable condition. And the reason why is, well, not doing a lot of outdoor watercolor, plein air, whatever you want to call it. I'm not doing a lot of that right now. So this just stays in my studio area, which is in my dining room, and it doesn't ever really move from there. It's in impeccable condition. The difference between them at this stage of having used both of them at about the 2/3 mark completion of the book is night and day. The other one was so banged up, is so banged up compared to this one. This one looks like I just bought it. Now, for this one, I paid a fairly outrageous $34.99 for it. That is Canadian dollars, so this book costs less in other markets and more in some other markets. A lot of people say it's very expensive if you're outside of the US. And yeah, I totally get that. It is pretty expensive for me. And here's the other thing. I didn't want to buy it from like Michael's or anywhere online. I could have got it for cheaper, but what had happened is that there is an independently owned art supply store that has been around since I was a kid. It is called Wartzman's, Gwartzmann's. And this place is a place of nostalgia for me. Not that I ever went in because I never got into art until fairly recently in life, but it's in Chinatown. And I used to walk down to Chinatown every single weekend with my grandparents. We would go for dim sum because I am Chinese Canadian, half Chinese anyway. So I love to support them. They had a huge renovation that took them, I don't know, like renovations do, 4 times longer than I expected. So I was like, I'm not waiting for a sale. I just want to buy a bunch of stuff from here. The other really cool place that this independent art store, the other cool thing, excuse me, that this art store sells is it's the exclusive Canadian carrier of Roman Schmal paints, Roman Schmal, and I am saying that right. The captions always mess this up. It's SZMAL. Roman Schmal is a Polish paint maker that makes these little half pans that I love. And I know I'm holding what appears to be a Winsor & Newton cotton and travel palette, and that's exactly what this is. But you can pop out the old ones and pop in the Roman Schmals. So that's what I've done. So this right now is mostly a Roman Schmal palette held in a white, pocket palette casing, if that makes sense. So I know that not everybody can get to an indie art supply store. So I'm going to try and find some online links so you can purchase this online if that's what you wish to do. And while you're here, if I could ask you to like and consider subscribing, that would be a huge help to me. It takes me time to make these videos, and it is a labor of love. I really do enjoy making them for you. But one way you can let me know if you are liking it, basically, is by liking and subscribing. And what happens is, when I go into my metrics to see how videos are doing, it's just an instant way for me to know whether a video topic is resonating with you guys or not. So all of these layers have been pretty wet, and this paper handles wet like a champ. And so I know that I've alluded to that, and you'll see the painting next to it that I did. Is it perfect? No. Is it the same as cotton? Of course not. But if you need to put a lot of water on it, go for it. And so that was my main purpose in sort of making this video and basically doing a real-time demonstration of it, just so you see how it handles it, how it dries, how much lighter or not it gets. And it's pretty good. I really do like it a lot. Will I purchase another one this size? I don't think so. And here's the issue. It's large. So when you open it up, it's like quite a large magazine open. And consequently, it takes up quite a lot of desk space. And so if I want to have a book near me or a reference photo, or if I want to have my laptop, then I end up taking up all of my surface area. And it's just like the position that I have is a little awkward. You know, People are like, use a book stand or something like that for my book or my reference photo or my laptop, put that off to the side. But I'm kind of wedged near a window. So this is just an awkward size for me. And then the other side of it always wants to flip up. So even though I'm more than halfway done, that's just something to consider. This book likes to have something weighing it down, or if I use a clip, I need to use like a heavy duty bulldog clips basically to hold these open because it's a substantial book that wants to close. So it can be like you're kind of wrestling it a bit. So if you're very limited in space, this is probably not an ideal choice. And it, in my experience, in this one anyway, doesn't love to stay flat. I think when I was in the exact middle, it stayed pretty flat, but anytime you're on the first third or the last third, it really wants to slam shut on you. So, you feel like you are indeed fighting it a little bit, which is maybe not ideal. And then it begs the other question. This is so big that should I not have just done this on an individual sheet of watercolor paper, like a bow hung sheet of paper, or maybe in some other format? Now it's locked in this sketchbook. So kind of, I guess, depends on how you feel about that. Another consideration, and I don't know, this probably sounds a little bit flighty, but this is quite a somber looking book, and I can't even believe I'm using these kind of words to describe a sketchbook that we're supposed to be having fun in, but there's a serious nature to it. I don't know if it's the sort of serious brown outside, faux leather covering. I don't know if it's that or it's just quite heavyweight. It doesn't have the whimsy that like a Talon's notebook has, or even an Etcher. I also have a Hahnemühle, and even that, by contrast, even though it's got a kind of dark, I think it's cloth. I don't know. I haven't used one in a while. A cloth exterior. Those all feel a little less serious, and I think maybe it's that they've got the elastic. Maybe that they're a little bit thinner. This one feels like you need to paint something good inside of there. So I guess that's a good thing. It makes you take your practice seriously in a way, but it is not freeing the way that a Talon's art creation book is. And I guess, each notebook has its place. Now, on the subject of sketchbooks and journals, I don't know why I said notebook, I meant sketchbook. I try and choose them according to how much water I'm going to be using rather than keeping one for flowers, keeping one for, I don't know, whatever the case may be, urban sketch. I try and strictly use them according to how much water I want to put in. And this is my wettest of the wet. And you'll have seen here, and I know I haven't commented at all at what I have been painting, but you'll see that I had dropped some colors into other colors. This can handle quite a bit of wet on wet. And that's fun. I don't have any other sketchbook really that can do that. Even with the Hahnemühle that I've owned, I don't feel like it held as much water. The paper is just much thinner than this. This is just so heavy duty. So let's talk about the waviness factor of the pages. Does it make the book puff up ridiculously? Sorry that I'm not showing you that view as we're just doing a paint along here as we chat about this, but it does make the paper a little bit wavy, but then you close it and then you stick it on a bookshelf or maybe you pile other books on top of it. And it's just a reasonable amount of waviness. So don't let that be a consideration at all for this, purchasing it or not. Sure, it gets wavy when you put a ton of water on it, but it's fine. And the waviness subsides a little bit after it's been squished closed for a while. Okay, it occurs to me that I haven't said a single word really about the process of making this. I am a beginner watercolorist, a confident beginner at this point, but I can't pretend to be like some sort of expert level watercolorist. Absolutely, I'm not. I am just following what I see in the reference. There are just some slight directions, and I love that about the watercolor book, this vintage one. They assume you to have a level of intelligence that I don't think would be assumed in today's book market. Maybe I'm wrong. They definitely would not have called this book Watercolors for Beginners. It would be like intermediate watercolor for sure. But of course, that's not nearly as catchy of a title. But you know what? I like that for me. I like that for me. This book was actually a gift from my friend Jess, who picked up not one, but two vintage watercolor books for me. What a lovely and thoughtful gift. So, what I am mostly doing here is just following what I see more than anything else that was in the photo. Because the instructions were actually quite scant. They don't go into deep detail about the colors, just the scantest of details. They don't go into much detail about the technique, but because I've done so many follow alongs, so many tutorials, it's pretty easy for me to sort of get an idea of what they're going to tell me to do, how to structure the layers. But I kind of went off on my own doing what I wanted to do for the most part. And I'm struggling with leaves. That is my least favorite thing. Leaves, stems, ugh, they almost inspire dread in me. And I'm trying to get a bit of shadowy areas going with some darker colors. and I'm just trying and trying and working it and probably overworking it a little bit, and that's okay. I think that's part of the joy of watercolor. This is supposed to be a sketchbook, so I'm not going to be hard on myself. I think actually I did a pretty pretty good job overall. And the most thing was that I enjoyed sitting down and having some sketchbook time. I mean, isn't that really what it's supposed to be about? It's not supposed to be about getting gallery worthy painting. Not that I ever make gallery worthy paintings, but it's not supposed to be about getting a top level gorgeous painting out of it. It's about trying something. And in this case, I'm trying something that's out of the watercolor book that I have. And I'm trying my best to make a go of the things that I'm seeing. And that's really great for your brain. Just looking back and forth from the photo to your painting, I think is a really, really good exercise. So I really love Strathmore journals. I think they're great. I will buy another one again. I keep saying, like, will I buy another one? Don't think I'll get this size. So I don't think I found the right size for me yet because I don't like painting that much in landscape format. I prefer portrait. That's why I got this one. But then this one was just a little too big. So I'm going to be looking now for a smaller portrait size one. And I think that'll fit the bill. But two thumbs up. If you see this on sale, grab it. If it's like $60 equivalent where you live, I'd say that's probably too much. It's not the end of the world if you don't get this sketchbook. But I like mine. I have had two now over the period of almost a year, enjoyed them both, and think they're worth it. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.